Welcome to a program featuring interviews of state and federal candidates, as well as the incumbents from districts served by Clatsop, Marion, Polk, Tillamook, and Yamhill counties. I'm Ruth McEwen, an advisory council member serving Northwest Senior and Disability Services Advisory Council. I want to welcome candidates, incumbents, and advisory council members to the 2022 Candidate Forum, which is sponsored by our Senior Advisory Council and our Disability Services Advisory Council. Northwest Senior and Disability Service is a local governmental organization that provides Medicaid, Oregon Project Independence, Older Americans Act, and grants-funded programs. The mission of the Northwest Senior and Disability Services is to promote dignity, independence, and health, honor choice, and empower people. The assistance and support we provide consumers include information and assistance, in-home and community-based services, and financial and medical help, meal sites and home-delivered meals, option counseling, adult protective services, Medicare counseling, peer mentoring, money management, as well as health and wellness programs. Because of the number of state legislative districts that our service area covers, we have invited a large number of candidates to be interviewed. Each candidate has been given information on the format used in these interviews. Each candidate will be introduced by a member of the advisory councils. Then each candidate will have the opportunity to answer questions which will be timed. That way you, the viewer, can compare apples to apples. We thank these candidates for their willingness to share their views about services for Oregon seniors and people with disabilities.
Hi, my name is Stephen Meneses. I'm a volunteer with Senior Advisory Council at Northwest Seniors and Disability Services. Today I'm interviewing Victoria Ernst, independent and Democratic candidate for Congress House District 24. We will be asking questions related to seniors and people with disabilities. Welcome, Victoria, and thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you, Stephen.
To get started, please tell us about your platform and experience that would encourage a senior person with disabilities to vote for you.
Well, thank you for the question. So my platform is all about access and giving a voice to those in our communities that don't often get their voices heard. My background is as a human rights attorney. I started out in civil legal aid, and that's where I really got to know some of the issues that especially seniors and people with disabilities are facing. I'm a proven advocate for seniors and people with disabilities. Starting my career in civil legal aid, I helped hundreds of people navigate our complicated legal system and complicated public benefit system. I helped people file for SNAP, or food stamps as they're commonly known. And I also helped a lot of folks that were denied their Social Security or Social Security disability benefits reapply or fight those denials. And through that process, I realized how complicated that system is, how really you almost have to be an attorney or have access to an attorney sometimes to be able to get approved for those systems on the first time, especially with Social Security disability benefits. And that's really not the way the system's supposed to work. I've also written hundreds of wills for people for free, especially to low-income seniors, so that they could make sure their families were taken care of. I worked as a tribal advocate in Montana before law school, and I focused there on writing wills, and I traveled all over the state, especially serving individuals on the reservations that didn't have any other access to getting a will written, which is something that it gives people a lot of peace of mind, and it's a really important thing that everyone needs, that there isn't a lot of help for. I believe that all Oregonians have the right to live with dignity, and that we need to continue to support programs that offer critical services to vulnerable populations. As a state representative, I will continue to advocate for seniors and for people with disabilities and support programs that support them and enable them to live healthy, dignified, and respected lives. The programming that's offered by Northwest Senior and Disability Services is a really important part of that. And I know this firsthand because I'm a weekly volunteer at the Northwest Senior and Disability Services meal site in McMinnville. I've been volunteering there since I moved back at the beginning of COVID. And I help prepare meals every Monday morning, and I help as a substitute meal delivery driver whenever I can as well. During the height of the pandemic, that meant that I also was helping folks with other needs besides just delivering meals. I helped some of the people on my route find appointments for their vaccinations. I helped them coordinate transportation to medical appointments. And to be honest, that was a really isolating time, especially for people that lived at home and lived on their own. And for a lot of the people that I was delivering meals to, I was probably the only person that they were really seeing, or the person delivering their meals was the only person that they were seeing during the day. And I spent a lot of time just talking to folks from a safe distance, often through the door. But I think just being there makes a difference, because we all needed to support each other through that time. And the pandemic has been so isolating for all of us, but it's especially so for people that live on their own and people that are medically vulnerable. And as a state representative, I'll be committed to working with my constituents to find out what their needs are, what their priorities are, and then working to get those needs addressed in the legislature. Some of my top priorities as a state representative will be affordable and accessible healthcare, including mental health care and prescription drug coverage, affordable and accessible housing, access to adequate nutrition, and ensuring that all Oregonians have equal access to opportunities and are empowered to live their lives with dignity.
Very well. The second question is, tell us what you know about OPI and how it improves the lives of seniors and people with disabilities.
Thank you. So I fully support Oregon Project Independence. I believe it's a really important tool for many seniors and for people living with disabilities in Oregon. I believe everyone deserves respect and should be able to exercise their independence for as long as they can. And sometimes that means minor accommodations and some small supports that can go a long way in helping people live independent lives. Sometimes people need support to be able to continue living independently in their own homes. And Oregon Project Independence provides support for daily activities like bathing or dressing, but also support for tasks like shopping or managing medications and transportation to things like doctor's visits. With some support and accommodation, many people that would otherwise not be able to live independently and remain in their homes can do so. And this is a huge thing for people's mental and physical health. Independence boosts self-esteem, and data shows that people that live on their own live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. I can speak to this personally. My grandfather is 92 years old and he still lives on his own, but he can't do everything for himself anymore. If he didn't have the support he does with meals, with some housekeeping, and with some transportation, it wouldn't be possible for him to stay on his own, and he would not be as healthy or thriving the way he is now. He feels proud and independent, and I believe everyone deserves that. OPI allows more people to have that and to live in their homes independently. As important as the program is, though, it still isn't adequately funded. There are many people that need those services that are still waiting to access them. And again, coming back to access, which is really the theme of my campaign, as a legislator, I will continue to fund this program, but also look for ways that we can increase funding so that all people, all seniors and persons with disabilities that need these minor supports to continue living independently are able to access and afford that support.
Very well, thank you. Third question, how do you prioritize state funding, including funding that is matched with federal funds, such as Medicaid, for services to an increasing senior and people with disabilities population?
It's another really important question. So as a state legislator, one of the really big jobs is to provide funding and to also leverage funding from the federal government so that we can solve the problems that we're facing here in Oregon. And one of the major issues that we're facing in Oregon and throughout the country is that our healthcare system is broken. And it's broken because it serves the needs of pharmaceutical and healthcare companies more than the needs of people. And I believe that no person should have to forego medical treatment or prescriptions they need to survive because they can't afford them. And as a legislator, I will prioritize state funding to increase the affordability and accessibility of healthcare. And that includes access to mental and behavioral health care, addiction care, and prescription drugs. We need to make healthcare more accessible and affordable for all Oregonians. Right now, we are not doing that. The latest state report on healthcare costs shows that healthcare costs increased by 50% from 2013 to 2019 on average. And the costs went up the most for older Oregonians. Medicare costs increased 60%. In comparison, commercial healthcare costs increased 45% and Medicaid costs about 30%. And of the big increase in Medicare costs, prescription drug costs really skyrocketed. They increased 185% during that period. And they're now, as of 2019, at about $2,200 per person annually. This is so wrong. Why did the prices for Medicaid prescription costs go up so much? These are seniors that need these prescriptions to survive. And these increases are even harder to adjust for when you're living on a fixed income, which a lot of seniors are. And while I will vow to stand up to pharmaceutical and healthcare companies and fight to ensure that all Oregonians, especially those on fixed incomes or in vulnerable situations, can afford the healthcare and the prescriptions they need to survive, my opponent in this race has received $1,000 from an out-of-state pharmaceutical industry PAC. And I think that tells us all which side she'll fight for if she's elected. We can't continue to let corporations continue to take advantage of seniors on fixed incomes that rely on prescription drugs and healthcare for survival. And I'm the only candidate for House District 24 that will fight for lower drug prices and lower healthcare prices for seniors and people with disabilities. I'll be committed to ensuring equitable, affordable, and accessible healthcare for all Oregonians and to leveraging federal funding to protect the rights and dignity of seniors and people with disabilities.
Thank you. The fourth question, during this time of increased risk of homelessness and food insecurities, what will you do on a state level so that seniors and people with disabilities no longer face a lack of accessible, affordable housing and receive appropriate nutrition?
So as a legislator, another one of my top priorities will be fighting for affordable and accessible housing, which can, from people that I've worked with as an attorney, especially persons with disabilities and seniors who also a lot of times have mobility issues, accessible housing is just as important as affordable housing. And proper nutrition is a related issue as well. And the pandemic exposed a lot of problems in the way that we deliver services to people and exposed a lot of cracks in the system. And I think we have an opportunity now to fix those problems and remove the barriers that impose unintended obstacles for people. Again, it really all comes back to access. My experience shows that I'm committed to solving these issues. I've worked with YCAP in Yamhill County on housing stability issues since the start of the pandemic as well. And during the pandemic, I wrote legal guides for people on issues like powers of attorney, which is something that a lot of seniors and persons with disabilities can benefit from. And so I made a legal info sheet on what those are, what they can do, and who might benefit from them, and then how you would go about getting one if that's what was right for you. I also wrote on tenants' rights against eviction. And so as the legislature was putting out different iterations of laws that protected people during the pandemic from being evicted and losing their housing, I took those really dense legal documents and converted those into 1 or 2 page briefers so that people knew what their rights were and how they could make sure that they were advocating for themselves. And I think that experience will help me a lot as a legislator. And as a legislator, I will continue to work on addressing these issues at the state level. And as somebody that's worked on these issues at the local level, I've seen what's working and what isn't working. And I'll fight to make sure that the programs that we have to address housing instability and affordability and accessibility and adequate nutrition work like they're supposed to.
Our final question. What would you do as a legislator to address the behavioral health issues that have been brought on by health issues in isolation related to the pandemic?
Well, this is another great question. The pandemic also showed us that healthcare isn't just about healthy bodies, it's also about healthy minds. And as we've talked about, the pandemic was challenging for so many people and so isolating, but especially for different populations like seniors that live on their own or people with disabilities that are relying on outside support to be able to live their lives fully. And we need to start focusing on promoting wellness and not just treating illness. And I think we need to be prepared for what's coming next. And I think that means we need to look at healthcare more holistically. We have to think about creating healthy communities and healthy families, and we need to support people at all stages of their lives and realize that not everyone needs the same support to be able to live with dignity. We need to listen to people about what they need and be able to adapt and meet those needs. And behavioral health issues and addiction have also increased tremendously over the pandemic. And as a legislator, I'll work not only to find short-term solutions to help the people that are in crisis now and facing those challenges now, but also work on longer-term solutions like more investment in public health, education, proper nutrition, things that address the underlying causes of behavioral health issues. I have experience as a lawyer fighting for the rights of my clients. And as your next state representative, I will advocate for the rights, the dignity, and the independence of all Oregonians. I will always stand up for the people and especially for the most vulnerable. I will work to elevate the voices and needs of our seniors and people with disabilities. And I'm the only candidate in the race that can say that. So I hope that I'll have your vote in November.
Well, Victoria, thank you so much for answering some of these difficult questions and spending a portion of your time advocating for seniors and people with disabilities. You have done quite a bit, and just giving us a gift of your time. So again, this is Victoria. She is running for House District 24 as an independent and Democrat. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
I want to thank the candidates on behalf of the members of the Senior Advisory Council and the Disability Services Advisory Council of Northwest Senior and Disability Services for attending our candidate interviews. Copies of the interviews can be checked out from Northwest Senior and Disability Services by calling 503-304-3451. Again, that number is 503-304-3451. We hope the information that has been provided will help you make informed choices when you vote. The opinions expressed here are not endorsed by Northwest Senior and Disability Services. For more information or to get connected to services provided by Northwest Senior and Disability Services, please call 1-866 206-4799. Again, that number is 1-866-206-4799. The advisory councils for Northwest Senior and Disability Services would like to thank Capital Community Media for the production of the forum. Thank you for watching.